Alrighty. And we're live, and I just realized I left my tape on the wall. Oh well. Maybe I can cover it up with the mic. What if modern Bible versions are designed specifically by an elite occult organization to manipulate society, the minds of Christians, and world events toward the Antichrist's one world religion? What if the New International Version, which has gone extremely liberal in recent years and quite woke, was designed to be that way from the very beginning? What if a certain individual whom had a great influence on this translation was a lesbian, an occultist, a New Ager, someone who held beliefs that a normal Christian would find bizarre and shocking? What if Virginia Mollenkott is behind the New International Version? Hi, my name is Joseph Armstrong, and welcome to the Bible Version Conspiracy. We've got a lot to cover tonight. There was an article that I wrote recently by the exact same title as the stream here tonight, and it's called "The NIV Tested Positive for Virginia Mollenkott." It's episode 43 now. We're almost to 50. That'll be a benchmark for sure. But we're going to be discovering tonight that what we were told about Virginia is in fact not 100% the case. In fact, it is barely the case. It is barely significant. It's really not even that significant. What we've been told from King James-only gatekeepers is in fact non-representative of reality, and most of the statements that King James-only proponents make surrounding Virginia Mollenkott and the NIV and so-called lesbians and homosexuals being on the NIV committee are simply not true. So, we're going to talk about all that tonight. Let's head on over. We're going to share our screen, and it's going to be a window? No, because we've got to flip back and forth. So we're going to share the entire screen. Share. And we're going to hide that. Hello, you two. Tonight we're talking about an interesting, fascinating subject. One that most... Whoa. Look at all those people. One that has been misrepresented to us repeatedly for a long, long time. Let me head over to our page. Buy me a coffee. I don't need login. I need posts. There we go. So for some time now, we've been putting out some articles that most people probably haven't seen, because most of our followers are in fact on YouTube, and I don't remember if we posted a post, a YouTube post that actually showed all this stuff. But I think I might have. I don't know. I might have. I may have. I might have. But all this in spite of. So, NIV tested positive for Virginia Mollenkott. This is the article that we published back on February 28th. Today is the 4th of April. So, we have a few more to go through, and I'm going to try to make these articles every week and kind of base the episodes off the articles. I think that might be a good workflow because I'm kind of having a hard time actually planning out a sequence of streams. So if I'm able to hit these as we're going and as we're progressing in our research and everything else like this, then it should be able to help us out with that and maybe get some kind of flow going. All right. So let's zoom in a little bit. There we go. Crop that up. That's better. All right. Whoa. There we go. It's true, the NIV has gone woke in recent years, but has it tested positive for the agenda since the very beginning? Now, let me say this. There's a book. I think I have it in my tote bag here. It's going to go on the bookshelf. It's called The New Order of Barbarians. Now, we have an entire series. It's a 3-part recording series of this guy named Lawrence Dunnigan, and he's listening to Dr. Richard Day basically explain what the New World Order has planned. It was at a pediatrics meeting back, I believe, in '69, if I'm not mistaken. So we have more details about it on other streams. But anywho, apparently this did actually happen. And one of the things that Richard Day said is that for population control reasons, homosexuality, lesbianism, all that kind of stuff would be pushed as, healthy and normal and all this other stuff to try to cut down on the population. Also, fornication, all that stuff that entails would be pushed as well, especially through music and the media. And then because he's like, we can't tell people to just, not do the deed. We, it's just too strong of an urge. So what we're going to do is we're going to encourage it, but then at the same time, we're going to encourage birth control, and that'll help us cut down on the population. So that's what Dr. Richard Day had in mind. And he says some things about, the homosexual agenda and everything else like this that have in fact come about in our day and time. It's really weird reading that book because it shows so much that is happening now that actually happened then. So this is one reason why I mention about the agenda since the very beginning. I will say that there's a possibility that all of this stuff was actually raised to in kind of a red herring, I guess, kind of way, actually cover for the fact that it was going to go woke, or there was an agenda to push it toward wokeness, and cover up for it by the King James only outcry against the NIV, because everybody knows the NIV is the most hated translation by King James only people. And why is that? Probably because Gail Ripplinger criticized the NIV more heavily than any other translation. That's probably why. Especially the 64,000 missing word thing, which I don't think is accurate, but I haven't had a chance to look into it yet. All right, so I asked these questions. Was there a conspiracy to gradually make the NIV favor homosexuality, like it actually does today, or at least it seems to? It's more so, I think, like the inclusive woke agenda that it favors. I couldn't point to anything specific, so I'll forbear from making too many comments on that. Did the loud protest of the ridiculous KJV-onlyist help shape the course of future compromise? That's a question. How much can we trust the KJV-only gossip mill? Now, that's something I would ask repeatedly with emphasis, because there has been a lot of gossip that has been spread by chiefly, and I'm sorry, the queen of King James onlyism truly is Gail Ripplinger. Sorry to say. But yeah, as far as people, and we're going to discuss a lot of her writings on this channel, I am so sorry, but most of the misinformation that is actually out there about this entire thing has been spread by her and her work. So it's really where most of it comes back to. And I've got I've got some suspicions. Anyways, we'll just keep going. Were the cries against Virginia Mollenkott used to mask the real agenda? How are they exploiting our fears? Now that's something too, because King James only people are scared to death about relatives or whoever else taking the mark of the beast because they use Satan's NIV. You don't have to look too far to find this concern. The problem is that when you have an agenda that is much more intelligent and ruthless than your common Christian, sorry, it's just true, and much more further reaching, much more studied and prepared and planned and calculated, I'm sorry, but there is a way that they are exploiting your fears. So there's a lot that needs to be caught up on. There's a lot that needs to be slowed down and thought about. Reacting is not always the best way to react. So, yeah. Just a lot of things to think about before you go sharing that King James only meme that says that the NIV was written by a lesbian or something else like this. Most King James only people that I know are not that irresponsible. Most of them are at least somewhat aware of some nuance to that statement, but that is what has been caught up by the crowd today and spread around everywhere because people read a little bit of Gail Ripplinger and ran with it. We've been told by the gate creepers. We've been told by the gatekeepers of King James onlyism that Virginia Mollenkott was on the original NIV committee, and that she orchestrated the removal of scriptural condemnations of sodomy / homosexuality from its translation. Should we really be surprised that this has no basis in fact? Check out this transcript from the Ankerberg show where Kenneth Barker, NIV translator, goes toe-to-toe with two leading proponents of KJV-onlyism. Now, I will let you know, it's a fantastic resource. There is a complete transcript of the King James only controversy or whatever revisited, or King James onlyism revisited. I forget what it's exactly called. But it's the programs by John Ankerberg that he did way back when, with I believe 5 people that were involved in the production of the new versions, and then some kind of semi-major proponents of King James onlyism. You had Joseph Chambers, who was kind of representing Gail Ripplinger. He wasn't sent by her, however. Sam Gipp and Thomas Strauss. Peter Ruckman and Gail Ripplinger were also invited. I wish they would have gone. I really wish that they had, but they did not accept the invitation. Gail pretends it was because her terms weren't met, or her terms were not met. I am highly suspect of that. And, excuse me, highly suspicious of that. And also there's some nuance there that I think that she completely overlooked. They had a program to run. They weren't about to bend the entire thing over to kiss her proverbial backside, which is basically what she wanted. It was pretty ridiculous, and I'm not quite sure why Peter Ruckman didn't actually end up going on. I think it's because they were, they kind of wanted to send their pawns, which is really sad. Because, Don Wilkins really had some things to say to Peter Ruckman. His book called the NASV Satan's Masterpiece. NASV translator, Don Wilkins, has a copy. He still has it today. I'm pretty sure. And it's got all kinds of notes and sticky notes and everything all over it. And he really had some things to ask old Peter Ruckman. And it would have been amazing if he would have actually participated, but he didn't. And, you know, eventually he ended up dying, so there's no hope of that happening. But it would have been awesome. Anyways, check out this transcript. Okay, so the entire transcript of the entire show, I believe it was 8 parts, is available on the Ankerberg Show website, so you guys can check that out. This is a transcript that I copied and pasted from there. There's a link to the book where Kenneth Barker is reading from, called Accuracy Defined and Illustrated. I have a copy. It's right in front of me. So used to digging around for my books. This is the copy you're going to want. I accidentally bought this one, called The Accuracy of the NIV. It's also by Kenneth Barker. I believe it is pretty much the same thing, but the actual printing that he reads from, I haven't had a chance to really look over it closely, so I'm pretty sure it's pretty much the same thing. But the actual book that he read from was this one that has the magnifying glass on the front. So if you're going to pick up a copy, you can do that right here on the article. Link to the article is in the description of this video, stream, whatever it's called. Because we're also streaming to Facebook tonight, which is awesome. We haven't been able to do that for a long time, but I finally figured out the integration with Facebook, and woohoo, we're back on Facebook. All right, so I'm not actually going to read this to you. Really sorry, I'm not going to do it. We're going to watch the video. Oh, it's even better. So let's see. That was the King James Only Controversy Revisited, Program 7 from September 26, 2013. And I believe the actual show was recorded far before 2013, but I'm not sure. Not sure. I don't remember. Okay, so the segment from the Ankerberg discussion is a 9-minute clip, which focuses on modern versions teaching on homosexuality. The full recording of this discussion, which I believe was recorded in 1995, is also available on YouTube. So if you click the YouTube here, you click that, it's going to take you to the full thing, which is like over 2 hours. And you're going to want to start at around 157:17 if you want the whole big thing. If you want just what we're discussing tonight about the homosexuality of Mollenkott controversy, you're going to click this link up here, 9-minute clip. All right. See also Dust Off the Bible's article on Was the NIV Corrupted by Homosexual Translators. So that's another article that you guys can check out by Dust Off the Bible. From what I've seen, many, hang on. Okay, I don't think that's supposed to be 1. I think you're supposed to get rid of that E. All right, so from what I've seen, many on the uninformed side of the KJV-only proponent spectrum, so like the uninformed, the irresponsible, the pyrotechnics, the I've got no idea what I'm talking about, but I'm doing it anyways, that whole side, part of that I used to be and on still subject, still am, admittedly. I am very much on that side on many different things that I'm still trying to learn/unlearn, but we're doing our best to actually learn and educate ourselves and help educate you. So if you're into that kind of stuff, mash that subscribe button if you're on YouTube. Let's see. So, all right. Uninformed side of the KJV-only proponent spectrum accuse her of being a perpetrator of what they see as woke corruptions, while the more deceptive, I will say deceptive, from whom the uninformed heavily borrow, that would be people like Gail Ripplinger, who are grossly deceptive, opt for a carefully worded game of guilt by association. So you'll notice when we get into in a little bit, we'll get into Gail Ripplinger's book, New Age Bible Versions. If you see I highly recommend getting the PDF. The one that I have is the 2021. And you can search keywords. And when you search Mollenkott, you never really see the name associated the way that you think it would be. It's just things like the NIV's Virginia Mollenkott and things like this. There's no real Mollenkott did this, Mollenkott did that. And I will also say that Mollenkott didn't become a lesbian / New Ager / all of this stuff until after her involvement with the New International Version. She had some leanings toward it, yes. But she had a husband all the way up until the year that the NIV came out, 1973. And she had a son. The last name Mollenkott is not her maiden name. And it's not the name of her, partner or what have you. It was the name of her husband. Rainey, I believe is how you pronounced her middle name. And maybe if we get a chance, we'll go over to the Wikipedia article that gives a little more information about her. From what I've seen, many on the uninformed side of the KJV-only proponent spectrum accuse her of being the perpetrator of what we see as woke, what they see as woke corruptions. While the more deceptive, from whom the uninformed heavily borrow, opt for a carefully worded game of guilt by association. Thus, they skillfully avoid saying what they know is technically inaccurate, while maintaining the unneeded suspicions they have spread. Question: have the compromises we see today been influenced by the proponents, or have the compromises that we see today been influenced by the protests of KJV-only proponents? Let us know what you think below. I should use that. That rhymes. Oh, and there's my meme. We'll have to check that out in a second. Well, we might forget about it. All right, so Gru. Virginia Mollenkott was a lesbian New Ager who served on the NIV committee. Virginia Mollenkott changed the Bible's warnings against homosexuality. Virginia Mollenkott made the NIV conform to New Age philosophy. Virginia Mollenkott was an evangelical Christian at the time and had no influence on the final wording of the NIV. I thought maybe you guys might get a kick out of that. All right, which, by the way, she was raised Plymouth Brethren. I don't know an awful lot about the Plymouth Brethren. I will tell you that. What was that one? I don't think... Well, now Plymouth Brethren, let me say this. Aleister Crowley was also raised Plymouth Brethren. I'm just going to put that in there. I somewhat suspect that Crowley was subject to perverted abuse as a young child. I highly suspect that. Especially since there is a lot of information that he would torture animals, that, he was just just seemed to be, totally possessed child. From what I know from like the Transformation of America and the Confessionals and different things, and Bill Schneeblin's appendix in his book Lucifer Dethroned, different ones like that, it seems very, very clear that someone, either in the Plymouth Brethren or somebody in his life, I don't know how the connection was, but there was something dark going on in Crowley's childhood. But those also may be myths that he allowed to circulate and build up around his early youth in order to, get more of an edge or what have you. I mean, he was that kind of guy, I think. So, I don't know. It depends. I wasn't there. I couldn't say a lot. By the way, this edition of the NIV right here, Holy Bible, New International Version with that brown cover, I remember that cover. It was kind of soft and everything. That is exactly the NIV that I used to poop next to. So at my parents' house, there was a stool that had been like repaired like with strapping tape and stuff underneath it, and it had like a fuzzy kind of pink, pinkish, like kind of like this color, kind of, except a little bit more pink and everything. And it was like I said, it was like fuzzy, and it sat next to the toilet. And there was like Our Daily Bread there, and for a while there was the Open Bible, blue cover, and there was this New International Version, and it would just be there. So, and yeah, I remember that cover very, very well. That was exactly what my mom had. And for the people that are like, oh, I read the King James Bible and it completely changed my life. The NIV was doing nothing for me. Subjective arguments are not arguments. They're not evidence. They're not proof. I know Brandon Peterson kind of tries to make it that way. And Brandon, I know you could be watching this. I don't know. Or, and we've talked. I appreciate you so much. You know. But when you say, I was using modern translations and then I started using the King James Bible, and it just felt like the Bible, and my life was never the same and everything like this. Sometimes, and I mentioned this in a comment on your first podcast, I believe it was, or maybe it was the video that you made right after that, I forget, about the these and thous and things. But yeah, that can often be the case. Taking your Bible reading and shifting it to different wording can do a lot for you. If you're reading modern translations in your own speech, and then you go to like a King James Bible that is like totally different, it can give you a fresh perspective, and it can renew spiritual passion in your life. It can. Being with the King James Bible your entire life, and then reading something in contemporary language, or reading something like the Tyndale Bible. Something like that can transform your spiritual life too. Okay? It's a subjective thing. And I mentioned that because this NIV changed my mom's life. My mom grew up with the King James Bible. She had a very hard time understanding it, and she's a reading teacher. Just so you know. She's a reading teacher. Her degree is in how to teach children how to read. And she knows a lot about it. And when she started reading the New International Version, she was just like, this makes so much sense now. And it changed her life. I was raised in a godly Christian home, partially because my mom started reading a translation that she could understand easier. So, let's see. We read the bottom there, and we went all the way down to the thing. The Mimi Weemy. Let's head on over to VLC. Now let's see if this will play. Are you guys hearing that? The audio might not be playing. If you guys heard that, please leave a comment and let me know. I'm going to have to come over here for a second. Let us see. Come on, computer, shift on over to the comments so I can see if people heard. I'm going to try editing. Possibly I can do this. Maybe I can't. All right, I'm trying to see, I'm going to wait, and I'm going to see if I can actually change the share screen settings, because I may not have ticked for the words to actually come through. Let's see. Okay, so let's see a couple of comments maybe in the meantime while I try to get this little vertical ellipsis mark to respond. Ward is right. All the severe suspicion and rejection of the NIV is more falsehood and superstition, is mere falsehood and superstition. I would agree. I would agree that that is pretty much correct. So I'm going to actually have to stop sharing the screen and then go back in and hit the little slider. Thank you for joining us, by the way. You guys are great. We've been going for 31 minutes, and hopefully we can hit a lot of things tonight. All right, so going to present, and we're going to share screen. Maybe it'll give me an option to just share VLC. Also share tab audio. Window. Also share system audio. Hopefully that works. She was an unregenerate New Age fruitcake. All right, well, guess what? You sound like you've read New Age Bible versions, and that you've only read the writings that she wrote when she became a unregenerate New Age fruitcake. You didn't talk to her when she was happily married and having a child. I will say, absolutely, if you read the writings that Gail Ripplinger cites, you can absolutely get that impression. But guess what? Gail Ripplinger cites works that she wrote, that Virginia Mollenkott wrote, from about 1992 onward. That was about a year before she published her book. The NIV came out in 1973, 20 years earlier. You don't think a couple of things changed in 20 years? Like I said, the Virginia Mollenkott that they invited to help them with English style because she was an expert on English, modern English syntax and usage and structure. She worked at a university, I believe, in New Jersey, I want to say. They invited her to do that because she had a reputation of being a strong Christian, a strong evangelical Christian. And if they would have known what she talked about later on, and her lesbianism, and different things like this, Kenneth Barker mentions in the show, they wouldn't have invited her. All right, let's see if that tab audio shows up, or the system audio shows up now. And it's like, can't have that. Hopefully, this will play. Please.
New Age Bible versions by Gail Ripplinger criticizes the new translations in many ways, and one of them...
All right, so I think we're getting audio. Unless somebody says otherwise, I'm going to assume that you guys are getting audio. And yeah, hopefully it'll be helpful to you guys. And it's got a little transcripty thingy right here, which will hopefully be even more helpful. By the way, if you guys are leaving comments on the Facebook feed, I may not be seeing them. If you head over to our YouTube channel, Bible Version Conspiracy, and leave comments there, comments will definitely show up. I'm seeing some Facebook comments, but that doesn't mean that your Facebook comments will necessarily show up. So we're going to push play, and we're going to see how this works. I had to download it to my laptop, and hopefully it works.
Has to do with the NIV, Dr. Barker. And she says that your translation can't be trusted because of the translators that you had on the committee. She says there were homosexuals and lesbians. The translation work they did, they were able to silence all of God's warnings against sodomy in the Bible. Is this true?
No, it isn't, John. And I think I can save a little time by just quickly reading what I wrote about that in the book, Accuracy Defined and Illustrated, on pages 123 and 124. Some have claimed that the NIV condones sodomy, that is, homosexual sins. The alleged reason these charges have no basis in fact. Here are the facts.
All right, let me make sure that there's no comments going, Joseph, there's no sound. This is something we're doing that's a little bit different from usual, so I'm a little nervous. I guess that's that. Well, let's keep going, I guess.
The earliest stages of translation work on the NIV, namely in the early 1970s, Virginia Mollenkott was consulted briefly and only in a minor way on Mavish style. At that time, she had the reputation of being a committed evangelical Christian with expertise in temporary usage, nothing on other use. Did not begin to surface, and years later, of her.
Yeah. And I'm afeared that YouTube isn't going to do us much better. Let me give it a shot. Oh, let's see. We're going to try going here. YouTube doesn't usually treat us well either. If that was running smoothly for you guys, please let me know, because it was choppy and twangy and weird on this end. So I may end up having to read the transcript, but we will have to see. Let's see. That would be in my history. A sailor went to sea to see what he could see. But all that he could see was the bottom of the deep blue sea. So this is our YouTube channel for those of you that have never been there before. Oh my goodness. Never mind. I'm logged in as the kids. There's Madeline, everybody. Oh my goodness. Oh, let's see. Let's try this. Ankerberg. I think that's how you spell it. Let's try this. Ankerberg. Show KJV-only controversy homosexuality. Which, by the way, the King James only rhetoric and stuff like this usually is like, oh, you removed sodomy, you deleted sodomy, and all this other stuff. And it's just like, if you replace it with a completely valid equivalent, then what is the problem? There's one problem. Dr. Richard Day mentioned something very similar to that, because he said that, that words would actually be replaced by synonyms to move them to a word that would not be synonymous with the original word. So we do have to be careful in that regard, but the King James only objection, I think, a lot of the time, especially since it is usually from a place of pure ignorance, is usually not helping, and also, I think, a distraction from what's actually going on. So let's try out this. There's no sound at all, isn't there? Hang on a second. My laptop went off. Went off of StreamYard completely. It doesn't want to stream and watch a YouTube video at the same time. Let me try one last thing. Crank this quality down as far as it'll go. And let's see if that helps. We're going to re-enter the studio. We're not sharing the screen anymore, so now I've got to go back to... Okay, so while I'm setting this up, let me make a little plug. While you're over on Buy Me a Coffee page, there's a tab up there for posts that shows you all the posts that we've made so far, the articles that we do and things. But there's another post that says wish list on it. If you go to the wish list tab, we are doing a fundraiser to eventually one day get ourselves a laptop that will be cooperative, because this one is very old, 8 gigs of RAM. It hates me. It's overloaded. It's anyways, just long story short, we need a new laptop. So if you guys can help us get some equipment so we can run this place a little more smoothly and all of this rocky nonsense doesn't have to happen. If you're interested in seeing this channel go further faster, that would be one way that you guys can help. Let's see. The other way you can do it is monthly, or you can actually, let's see. Yeah, you can do that. And please pray for us. We need it so bad. Oh, let's see. So we need the entire screen. We need this to be ticked off. And we're going to share. Is it going to work? Is it going to do it? Is it going to cooperate? Let's try it out.
And
oh, I heard something. It may work.
she says that your translation...
Okay, so it's going to take a while for the video to catch up with the audio. I'm all the way back at the beginning at 4, 5, 6 seconds. And it's obviously not doing that on your guys' end. Nope, not working. Oh, poop. All right, so we're going to... Oh, my goodness. We're going to hide that. We're going to go back here. We're going to remove that from the stage because it's not helping. I'm sorry, guys. This is supposed to work better. Other people can do it. I don't know why we can't, but anyways. It's hard being your own production guy, your own researcher, your own script writer, your own makeup artist. No. Oh, well. I want to see if... Will VLC allow me to play audio only? Playback... Render speed, jump forward, blah, blah, blah. Record, let's try audio. Audio track, audio device. Track media, No. Nope, it doesn't look like it's just going to play me in audio, I don't think. Unless... convert and save. Nope. Not going to happen. Yeah, there's no way to know if that's working anyways. Well, it's playing fine on my laptop, but apparently sharing the screen is another thing entirely. Oh well. Hey Chucky, how's it going? So yeah, we're just gonna have to read the entire thing. So I was really hoping that that video would work out. No such luck for us here at the Bible Version Conspiracy. All right, Ankerberg. New Age Bible Versions by Gail Ripplinger criticizes the new translations in many ways, and one of them has to do with the NIV. Dr. Barker, and she says that your translation can't be trusted because the translators that you had on the committee, she says, were homosexuals and lesbians. And she also asserts that because there were lesbians on the committee, the translation work they did, they were able to silence all of God's warnings against sodomy in the Bible. Is that true? Barker. No, it isn't, John. And I think I can save a little time by just quickly reading what I've wrote about that in my book, Accuracy Defined and Illustrated, on page 123 and 124. Some have claimed... Now let's actually read this from the book. We can do that because we have it. Page 123. All right. Appendix 1, the NIV and homosexual and lesbian practices. And we're starting at the word some. Some have claimed that the NIV condones sodomy, that is, homosexual sins. The alleged reason for this is that some NIV translators and editors were homosexuals or lesbians. These charges have no basis in fact. Here are the facts. In the earliest stages of the translation work on the NIV, in the early 1970s, Virginia Mollenkott was consulted briefly and only in a minor way on matters of English style. At that time, she had the reputation of being a committed evangelical Christian with expertise in contemporary English idiom and usage. Nothing was known of her lesbian views. Those did not begin to surface until years later in some of her writings. If we had known and now this is in 1995, so it would have been before some of her more recent works. She died in the year 2000. I believe Sensuous Spirituality and a couple other ones that Gail references were like 1992. Maybe a couple after that were added, but I'm not positive. I'll have to double check those. All right, so if we had known in the early 70s what became public knowledge only years later, we would not have consulted her at all. But it must be stressed that she did not influence the NIV translators and editors in any of their final decisions. And now this is important too, because one of the objections that they raise is in the Old Testament where the King James Bible says sodomites, NIV says shrine prostitutes. She was not a translator. Virginia Mollenkott was not a translator. She was also not a lexicographer. She was also not a Greek-English dictionary author. She wasn't any of those things. Those are the standard definitions in Greek and Hebrew reference works. Isn't that interesting? So your standard Greek and Hebrew reference works today are going to say shrine prostitutes and such like this. Well, Virginia Mollenkott didn't influence the translators to translate what they translated. She influenced them in a small way with English idiom and usage, because they wanted to refine what they had and what they were creating. Isn't that interesting how they go, oh, she removed it from the Old Testament, and that was the impression that I got. That was the impression that I held and thought for a long time, about 15 years, until I started looking into it. And now it's just like, oh, now I see why Gail Riplinger hates dictionaries and lexicons and reference works, because they all say something different than what she's saying. And she assumes that she's right because she's thinking about it from, such and such perspective, and the King James Bible's infallible and yada, yada, yada. Where actually, I think that both translations in that part have their place. The King James Bible is a little bit less precise in that spot if shrine prostitute is indeed the accurate translation, the more precise, accurate translation. But I wouldn't say that sodomites in the King James translation would be an error. It just has maybe a little bit less context, and maybe it's not as easy to understand exactly how it was being used in that passage. But it's not an error, and neither is the modern translation of it. You removed sodomite. Okay, yeah. You also said you removed the word God 54 times. But King James Bible doesn't have it. It has the word God in there when the word God is not in the original text, and it's not a problem. God save the king is another way of saying God give, may the king live long. It's another way of saying it. Godspeed is another way of saying, basically, good luck or what have you. I mean, honestly. And this is why I'm saying that I don't think there may be a couple of instances where they really take a liberty, like when they see a contradiction or something. But for the most part, it seems like the King James translators got it right for 1611, and the NIV, or what else have you, got it right for like 1973 or 2025. Anyways, it is also asserted that the NIV allows for homosexual and lesbian practices because it translates sodomites as male shrine prostitutes in 1 Kings 14:24, 15:12, 22:46, 2 Kings 23:7. This is... let me scroll down. Do I not have that in here? Oh yeah, it's down here. Okay. This is simply a problem of arriving at the correct meaning of the Hebrew word kadesh, plural kadeshim. Apparently, the KJV/AV translators thought it meant sodomites equals homosexuals, so they rendered it that way. Today, as modern commentaries and Hebrew lexicons indicate, we know that it means male shrine prostitutes. There is also a feminine form of the same word that means female shrine prostitutes. Such religious prostitution was a prominent feature in the pagan immoral worship of the Canaanite fertility gods and goddesses. Now that's the thing too, because you go and you read the King James translation and you see sodomites. And you're like, okay, so what? There was a bunch of gay people around there, and the soldiers killed them, I guess, is the... But if Kadesh and Kadeshim, if that means male and female shrine prostitutes or what have you, then that makes more sense, because then it would be associated with idolatry. And also, there's probably some things going on. So anyways, let's just keep going. Homosexual and lesbian practices are, and it also probably, it's probably a good idea just in general. Okay, well, moving on. Homosexual and lesbian practices are condemned just as clearly and strongly in the NIV as any other English version. See the NIV renderings of Leviticus 18:22, 20:13, Romans 1:26-27, 1 Corinthians 6:9-10, and 1 Timothy 1:10 and Jude verse 7. The NIV, a New Age version, is Appendix 2 in this book. Oh yeah, and you can head on over to what they said about Isaiah 14:12 on page 55. Fascinating. Maybe we'll get into that at some point. Then just this short paragraph. Okay, that and that. Ankerberg. What do you think, Joe? He turns over to Joe Chambers, who is the guy next to him on his left. Joe Chambers responds, I can't really do a Joe Chambers accent. I interviewed Virginia Mollenkott for about 45 minutes, something like that. She told of the long period of time in which she worked with the NIV as a stylist and a consultant. Now, she could have worked for a very long time. She apparently worked, from what I remember from the Wikipedia article, she worked with the American Bible Society for like, what was it, from 1970 to 1978, something like that. And I'm still trying to find the Mollenkott interview with Joe Chambers. I'm still trying to find it. Please, if you know where it is, tell me. Send it to me. That'd be awesome. I interviewed Virginia Mollenkott for about 45 minutes. And by the way, I'm not trying to defend Virginia Mollenkott. I'm not trying to defend Satanists. I'm not trying to defend lesbianism. I'm not trying to defend all this stuff. I'm trying to set the record straight because the record was twisted all up when Gail Ripplinger got a hold of it. So we're doing our job to try to get the truth out there. So here we go. She told of the long period of time in which she worked with the NIV as a stylist and a consultant. She told of large passages of scripture sent to her for her opinion, for her involvement. She said often that they would actually change words because she felt they were better. Okay? That's lovely. How about the passages in question? Are we not within the realm of English style and usage from what we've just seen described here? I'd say that we're well within the boundaries of what she was supposed to do. It's pretty obvious. Here's a letter from her last year, June 12th, 1994. So that shows me that the Ankerberg recording was indeed from 1995. I worked as NIV stylistic consultant for several years. She said very clear that there was a reduction of condemnation of sodomy in the NIV. Okay, did she say that very clearly? Or did you kind of make a leading question? I'd have to hear that interview for myself. And I can quote 1 Corinthians 6:9 as a proof. Let me give it to you, and I will read it both in the King James and NIV. Know ye not that the unrighteous shall not inherit the kingdom of God? Be not deceived, neither fornicators, nor idolaters, nor adulterers, nor effeminate, nor abusers of themselves with mankind. Okay, so now abusers of themselves with mankind is supposed to be a very clear condemnation of homosexuality. But no. I did not get what abusers of themselves with mankind was for a very long time, and maybe it's maybe to the King James's credit of a little bit more ambiguous usage sometimes, maybe that was a good thing. Now the last phrase has been changed, nor male prostitute, nor homosexual offender, and even Virginia agreed that, and she said, yes, Virginia, there are changes in the NIV. Okay. And there's a lot of people out there that are still saying the same thing about, oh, they have to use different words from the King James Bible to get a copyright. It's all about money. That's bullcrap. Total bull. And and yes, you're not going to just take the King James Bible and change a word or two and then say, oh, look, I just made a new translation. Come on. It's not the... That's the problem. Gail wrote a 700-page book with understanding about this deep on just about everything she said. Now, the last phrase has been changed, that, and then Virginia agreed, and even Virginia agreed that homosexual offender can be a homophobic rejecting against the homosexual just as surely as it could be a homosexual in the act of sin. Oh yeah, you could interpret it differently. She agreed that you can interpret it differently. Okay, yeah, but you also told us that abusers of themselves with mankind meant a homosexual. And somebody who offends a homosexual is not what you would read in that passage at all. It's really kind of impossible. Especially with the rest of Scripture. Come on. Even with the rest of what the NIV says. Come on. So that those Scriptures clearly reduce, and of course sodomy is removed from the entire Old Testament, as he admitted, and sodomy is certainly more than being a male prostitute, although there were male prostitutes. Yeah, Joe, okay. So, in other words, what he basically said there was that Virginia agreed that homosexual offender could be a homophobic rejecting of homosexual stuff, and pretty much everything else didn't really bear on the subject. All right, so Barker says, we did not translate it male prostitutes. We were talking about the word Kadesh and Kadeshim when we were saying that. You'll find plain homosexual references in all the verses that I listed at the end of what I read a moment ago. I don't see how anyone could say that we watered down homosexual and lesbian practices when we plainly condemned in this passage male prostitutes and homosexual offenders. That is totally beyond me. Chambers. Nor abusers of themselves with mankind, that phrase being reinterpreted, nor homosexual offenders. Barker. The study note on that says, now here's the study note from the NIV on that passage, apparently. Paul here identifies three kinds of sexually immoral persons: adulterers, male prostitutes, and males who practice homosexuality. In Romans 1:26, and that's interesting, in Romans 1:26, he adds the category of females who practice homosexuality. What could be clearer? Ankerberg. What you're saying is homosexual offenders covers all three of those categories. Barker, yes it does. Chambers. But it doesn't cover it and communicate to the people like abusers of themselves with mankind. That includes men and women or whatever. Oh, interesting. Okay. All right. Abusers of themselves with mankind. That covers women. What does that even mean? Okay, Joe. Barker. Well, I think it does. Ankerberg. Well, how about Leviticus 18:22, where it says, do not lie with a man as one lies with a woman. Chambers. Now that's in the NIV. Ankerberg, yes. Chambers, okay, I would accept that as being against it, but he still removes the word sodomy. Ankerberg. Well, my point is, if Virginia was on Virginia was on the deal and she was supposed to be responsible for doing this, why didn't she get that one too? Chambers. Nobody said that she did in every case. Okay. Oh. Decline. Sorry, dear, it doesn't work like that. The only two people who would call it antiquated would be the sodomites themselves. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, so anyways, Barker. I'll go back because I skipped a line. Barker. Sodomy is simply an antiquated word for homosexuality, homosexual, and lesbian practices. Chambers. The only people who would call it antiquated would be the sodomites themselves. They don't like it, of course. They like the word gay. Barker. No, it's not just that you don't hear it much anymore. Joe, in modern American usage. Chambers. But modern Americans, Sam Gipp. Sodomy is against the law in many places. I mean that word sodomy, Farstad, which is the New King James guy. It is used in a legal sense. Gipp, yeah, you can't say it's antiquated. You kind of actually can, because it's used in a legal sense now, and that's just about it. In Christian contexts and legal usage, probably more so, yeah, you're going to see it a lot. Popular usage, those aren't really the terms that we use. So anyways. I mean, we're talking 1995, and it's used legally, and you can say to somebody sodomy is wrong, here's the law against sodomy. If you change your law to say shrine prostitutes, every homosexual is going to say, I got no problems. Barker. There you keep bringing up shrine prostitutes. You see, that was point 2 in a statement. In all the other references that I mentioned, including the one John mentioned, including the one John mentioned, we are not talking about words. Dear, I can't. Maybe in a minute, but I can't right now. We were not talking about words translated shrine prostitutes. We were talking about translators in the NIV that mention specifically homosexuality. What does sodomy mean? It means homosexuality. Yep, right. What do you know, or what do you do with sodomy when you translated it? Oh, you removed it. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. You just put in a word that is completely equivalent, so that's horrible, isn't it? Well, that's fun. So in other words, you updated a word. How dare you? The King James Bible translators never did that. With like the Latin Vulgate or something. Okay. Barker. There are some places where sodomy is translated homosexuality. There are other places when it's the translation of Kadesh and Kadeshim, for which you have Kadesha and the feminine of it, where it is clearly referring to male and female shrine prostitutes. That's what I just said, shrine prostitutes. Barker. Where we translated it that way, but don't forget all the Hebrew words that are not those words that are translated homosexuality. Yep. You have changed sodomite to shrine prostitute in several areas. And Barker, because that's what it means. And this is the problem. Sam Gipp didn't come out against all of the lexicons and all of the dictionaries and all the reference works. Gail Ripplinger did. You can't use anything but a King James Bible to define all of the words that you need to know. Oh yeah, and you can also use Gail Ripplinger to try to figure out how to do it, and that's just about all you can trust is Gail Ripplinger and a King James Bible. I mean, at all. I mean, you can't even open up a book and look at something that contradicts Gail Ripplinger, and or maybe tries to add to your understanding of the King James Bible. Even if Gail Ripplinger says no go, then you're just not allowed. That's what it means to be a Ripplinger, right? I know, I was one for like 14 years, 15, almost 15 years. You've changed sodomite to shrine prostitute in several areas, Barker, because that's what it means. John Ankerberg gives James White the final word on this subject. James White comes in. Oh, the one that everybody hates. You want to know why? Because Peter Ruckman told you to hate him. He didn't use those words, but he did. Gail Ripplinger told you to hate James White because he is the enemy. Jack Chick told you that James White is evil. He is the Antichrist. He's a liar. He's lying about the King James Bible. He's lying about me. He hates all this stuff. Oh, he's nervous. Oh, he's doing this and he's doing that, and I'm going to play little word games with his last name. All of this stuff. It's really sad. It's really, 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 really sad how, especially how Gail just gets away with this stuff. Anyways. James White says, I hope everyone, and he had a very good response to her, I think, from what I've seen of it. There's been several things that I've checked out that were actual problems with Gail that she never wanted to admit. And there were at least 3 changes that he suggested to her book that she actually did change, but she didn't admit it. White. I hope everyone notices that the King James only advocates will always use the terms like changed, deleted, so on, so forth. In this entire thing, we have seen very plainly that it is a circular position. There goes my 12 o'clock alarm. It is a circular position. It starts with its own assumption. It starts with its own finish. And therefore, everything that differs from the King James Version is obviously a change, a deletion, a perversion, or whatever. We cannot, if we are going to be honest with ourselves before God, argue in circles. God does not call us to argue in circles. This argument that was just put forth, it would be just as easy for me to sit back and say, well, the King James Bible doesn't say anything about homosexuality. So do you see the word there? So therefore, it must be, I don't see the word there, therefore it must be all right. It's a ridiculous argument. And yet, it's the standard being used. Yep. And there's a few more articles that we've come out with. If you guys want to check those out, feel free. They're on our page, buymeacoffee.com/Joseph Armstrong. Oh, you can't even see them. That's right. I forgot. I stopped sharing my screen. All right. Well, my wife is begging me to come there real quick. I will come back and I will look at your comments real quick in a minute. Where am I getting this feedback from? There, hopefully that helps. Let me put on some music for you guys. We're going to turn on this. Come on now. There we go. And we're going to turn on... This will work. All right, right back. Alrighty, maybe I'll... Come on. There we go. I think I got it. All right, well, it looks like we've lost everybody. I'm going to go through these comments real quick. My youngest woke up and now he's screaming his eyeballs out because he wants daddy, so we're going to have to hurry this up if he doesn't calm down. Oh, I'm going to take this off right here. We're probably not going to get to the NIV quotations tonight, I don't think. We'll just flip through them real quick so you guys can check them out. If they even load. They're not even going to load. Yeah, this is evidence. We need tech. But the tech that we need is not cheap, and money sucks. Please be praying for us right now. We've got options before us, and we don't know what to take right now. We need things as a family that, and it's not necessarily something that you guys can provide. I mean, I'll talk to the co-conspirators about it, honestly, because I don't think that I just need to be talking about it all over the place, really. And you guys already know, so it's nothing terribly new. It's just really weighing on us now. All right, so that's unmuted, blah, blah, blah. Let's go to comments. And let's see. That can be removed from the stage. All right, let's see what Jacob Hermanzoon says. She was an unregenerate New Age fruitcake, when she died. Problem is all that you've ever read of Virginia Mollenkott is what pops up in Gail Riplinger's New Age Bible version. So, more than likely, that's all that you've read. And that's not telling us the whole story. Next. Jacob again. Why would they consult such a woman in the first place? Well, you know what? We just read that she had a reputation for being a sincere evangelical Christian, and she was an expert on English usage and phrasing, or whatever they said in the accuracy of the NIV. That's why they would have mentioned her. The Wikipedia page goes into it in a little bit of better detail. She was like the chair of just basically, she was up there as far as English usage goes. And that's why, I guess the devil rejoiced when she just kind of fell that way. Clearly, the NIV committee was full of people with great spiritual discernment, spiritual powerhouses. Well, from the shallow and irresponsible and basically, kind of nasty kind of way that you're going about this, I would say that they would probably overshadow you and I. So there's that. Let's see. Aleister Crowley was raised Plymouth Brethren. Yes. What do you think you proved with that? I'm not saying I proved anything. I'm not proving by that the Plymouth Brethren are bad. I'm pretty sure they were the first people to publish the Schofield Reference Bible as well. But the problem is that the people in this world that are being tortured and being that are part of the slavery that still exists today underground, like with Kathy No, kitty cat, you stay down. Oh, what's her name? Kathy O'Brien. The people in America that are programmed in that way are programmed with Christian stuff. Okay? And that's important to remember. They use Christian keywords. They use Christian phrasing. They use Alice in Wonderland very heavily. They use The Wizard of Oz very heavily. They use Disney very heavily. All right. And I don't think it was Plymouth Brethren. I want to say it was some kind of Mennonite or not Mennonite. It was Methodist something. I forget. But there was one confessionals episode that was really quite scary. He was a circuit riding preacher of some kind or other. And this wasn't back in the day either. It was like the guy who was being interviewed's grandfather or something. And yeah, he was a preacher, and he was also some kind of Satanist of some kind. And his grandson actually came across one of the demonic creatures that he kept up in the attic and that he controlled. And yeah, it basically scarred him for life, just even seeing this thing. So yeah, it was, yeah, there's things going on, okay? Things going on that are far beyond you and I, Jacob. You prove that they both apostatize and became agents of Satan. Yes, okay. And thanks for proving our point, Joseph. Okay, well, your point actually is that Virginia Mollenkott corrupted the NIV because she had influence over the final decisions of the translation. That's your point. Your point is that the very fact that Virginia Mollenkott was involved shows that the NIV was degenerate and that they were interested in hiring homosexuals and all this other kind of stuff because they were awful, evil people. That's your point. The point is that your point's not proven by the facts. Your point is very far removed from them. And we've gone over that tonight, and we've shown how the point that you might make, or that Gail might make, or that anybody else who raises the objection about Virginia Mollenkott make is, it just proves that it's illegitimate. And you want to discuss this further? Yeah, my laptop just keeps... Right now it's on a black screen, so I hope you guys can even see me. I think my phone is holding steady. So, and that's what I'm using from my camera, and I can see it's processing right along with me. So it should be okay, even though the laptop is going nuts right now. Eventually it'll show the comment. Maybe I should just select it on the phone. Oh, there we go. Jacob again. Aleister Crowley was raised... Yeah, I already read that. Never mind. Spray Arm is saying, hi, neighbor. Spinning centrifuges. And my wife wanting me to come there. And that was that. Hour and 24 minutes. Not bad. I would love to do a secret stream, or not a secret stream. I would love to do an after show tonight, but I'm not going to be able to do that. I have to get up tomorrow somewhat early, but then I have to also be much more rested than I am today for Sunday, because Sunday morning at 4:30, we're going to be interviewing Bryan Ross and talking about his book about Easter. Don't pass over Easter, because, sorry, Sam Gipp, Gail Ripplinger, Peter Ruckman, all these people that talk about Easter being Ishtar and Herod was going to celebrate his pagan festival and all this other nonsense. It's very ill-researched, and it's not true. Will Kinney will back me up on that. And so will the KJV Today website. The guy that researched that, I don't even remember who actually wrote that. But both of them go to great lengths to show that the standard Sam Gipp model of Easter defense is absolute claptrap with nothing behind it. And yeah, Bryan Ross is going to come on and we're going to talk a little bit about that, talk a little conspiracy, see how his beliefs have actually changed over time, because he used to preach the Sam Gipp line on Easter defense. And yeah, it just, like I said, doesn't add up. So I appreciate you guys for joining us tonight. It is late and we're going to scoot out of here. See if there's anything else that I wanted to mention. I don't believe there was. Oh, yeah. The NIV's Virginia Mollenkott, like Gail Ripplinger accuses, which wasn't able to load tonight, unfortunately. She accuses the NIV of teaching or teaching things that could be okay, yeah, I'm not responding to that person. Troll gnome or whatever. And okay, whatever. Let's see. Essential spirituality. She makes like some kind of reference to possible reincarnation-y kind of stuff. Portraying God as the abusive parent and Jesus as the obedient, trusting child. She said that she couldn't be she could no longer worship in a theological context that depicts God as an abusive parent and Jesus as the obedient, trusting child. That does not mean that that's what she thought of Christianity in general. That was what she was worshiping in, and I look forward to looking into the context surrounding that one. Oh, yeah, and then she's going to say, oh, yeah, she said, perhaps myself has been on Earth before in other bodies. Perhaps not. Sensual spirituality, 1992. Gale, the NIV came out well before that. And she tries to pretend that the NIV and other translations have that kind of that kind of reincarnation and stuff like that in there, which, of course, the church fathers taught against. So the NIV has apparently got that kind of stuff in there because the NIV's Virginia Mollenkott touts this or that or what have you, like Gail likes to say things. She does all of this implying and no actual laying out of evidence. She neglected to tell you that that was almost 20 years after the NIV came out. Goodness. Talk about an irresponsible researcher that's just trying to make a shock. And you got to wonder how much money she actually made off of selling her millions of copies of this piece of garbage called New Age Bible versions. It turns out that just about everything that is wrong with the niche that I'm a part of as the Bible version conspiracy, it turns out that just about every aspect of this entire thing that has some kind of falsehood or incorrectness or you know, partial truth to it or falsehood or anything else like this, it all connects and it all spirals back into the loving wings of this thing. So yeah, it's quite a situation, and I appreciate you guys joining us for this journey of exposing the lies we've been told and seeing what truth will unfold. Have a good night. We'll talk soon, and don't forget to read your King James Bible. Don't forget to read your Bible like the devil's after it. Because there truly is a Bible version conspiracy. God bless.